All right. Welcome, friends. We are live now. Um, Warm welcome to everybody who is watching this video on YouTube or on Facebook. This is T.S. Mohan from Vivekananda Janotana Trust. It's a group of professionals deeply inspired and interested in sharing the message of Swami Vivekananda and reaching this message to the youth of India and the youth across the world. So, on the very auspicious occasion of the National Youth Day today, 12th January 2022, like to invite you to a conversation on Vivekananda, medical education, and the spirit of Seva with four young youth: Dr. Bharat Pulavarti, Dr. Aniruddha Sharma, Dr. Ajit Partha, and Dr. Shashank Shastri. Four young graduates of medicine. These youngsters recently graduated out from a medical college. They're all onward on their journey for further education. In between, they have joined us, and we are going to have a conversation about Vivekananda, medical education, and the spirit of Seva. So, a very warm welcome to you all. My name is T.S. Mohan. I'm going to be your host for this evening. And what we're going to do is to have you all share your thoughts. It's very simple. National Youth Day. Let me take a couple of minutes to introduce each one of you. But before that, I'll also introduce the topic and why we are here together. All right. So, National Youth Day has been recognized as an opportunity to spread the iconic message of what a role model should be for the youth of India and the youth across the world, right? And no better person exists in our history than Swami Vivekananda. He was very um, iconic of the values that he embodied of the modernity as well as the best of the heritage that Indic civilization has to offer to the world at large, right? So, having said that, he is the representative of the best of India, of the Indic civilization of the 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, how many other years one can think about or uh, 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 get to the depths of it and get the wisdom of it. And why is it that we do? We want to reach out to the heritage, leverage the wisdom, live in the present for the bright future, right? And you all, as youngsters, all in your 20s, 24s, 25s, or whatever, a very interesting opportunity for us to exchange thoughts, especially on matters which relate to what brought you all together to pursue a medical education. What do you think is the spirit of seva that one needs to undertake? What is your understanding of who Vivekananda is? And Vivekananda as a representative of the rishis and munis and rishikas who had been in this land over the past several thousands of years and who are essentially contributed to the good of humanity across the world, right? So we will be focusing on these topics, and the idea is essentially very simple. I have a few questions to ask you all. You all will answer, and you will ask questions, and possibly if I have answers, I can share with you. And for those few who are right now actually tuned into our conversation, if they have questions, we'll warmly welcome it from them as well, right? And the more important thing is this, okay? If there are youngsters who are in their teenagers, 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, or whatever, who are all getting inspired to be doctors, what is it that you have to share with them, especially in the context of a role model like Swami Vivekananda, and more so on a very interesting occasion of National Youth Day. All right, so let me quickly go to you all and introduce you all. You are all graduates of JJM Medical College, Davnagari. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. You have done your MBBS, you have completed it, you are now declared doctors. So you have the title, right, royal there to be able to serve humanity at large, right? And then, of course, not only do you have you all done that, you have also undergone the tapasya of appearing for NEET exam, and successfully at that, because you all have secured a good rank and you're all waiting for possible uh, choice of programs that you would like to pursue as part of your masters, in order to be able to um, enrich yourselves with the skill sets and the capabilities to serve humanity in a much better way. Am I right? Wonderful. So let me start with this very important question. Of course, um, three of you are possibly from Bengaluru, and Dr. Shashank Shastri is from Mumbai. And more importantly, having come together, you all have certain views which are interesting, experiences which are interesting. There are points to agree upon and agree to disagree upon as well. And we'll have a whole lot of that unrolled out in the next 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes perhaps, so youngsters can really feel at home to understand how you all went about this maze called medical education, right? So you are now competent doctors who can take on the challenges of life. Okay, challenges of life, not in terms of enabling yourself to become better human beings, but also in helping around people in the medical sense of the term. Okay. So on that note, a very warm welcome to Dr. Bharat Pulavarti, Dr. Shashank Shastri, Dr. Ajit Partha, and Dr. Aniruddha Sharma. Okay. So Aniruddha Sharma is a graduate of the Kumaran School. I understand he's from Bangalore. Dr. Bharat Pulavarti is from Venkat International School, Rajajnagar, Bengaluru. Dr. Shashank Shastri is from school in Goregaon, Mumbai. I didn't get that name. What is that name, Shashank?
Gokuldam High School.
Gokul Dham High School. Wonderful. And Dr. Ajit Partha is also from Bengaluru.
Yes, sir. I'm from KV Mallesh from Bangalore.
Okay, there you are. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the first question that I would like to ask you all. Okay, so you had been through the medical college education. There was possibly a need for a role model so you could be comfortable, because you are actually putting in a lot of efforts to study, to discipline yourself, to pull yourself up so you could achieve the goals of your academic slog, if I may use the word slog, right? Now, of course, I can say Vivekananda is a role model. What was your experience? Let me go around and ask you this question. So maybe let's start with Aniruddha Sharma. Aniruddha, what did you do? Did you have a notion of a role model? Did you know who Vivekananda was? What did you do? Quick answers.
Yes, I was aware of Swami Vivekananda since childhood, like
Very nice.
most Indians do, and
We hope.
heard yes, I'd heard a few of his speeches and read a few quotes.
Okay.
Some of them I liked were there is strength in life,
Hmm.
and we have to take risks.
Wonderful. Beautiful.
And
Okay, let's, yeah,
yes.
quick. And
And then there is one more quote where he says, "If you succeed, you will lead, and if you fail, you would teach others."
okay,
So those are the few things that were very
come
inspiring.
to your mind. Wonderful.
Yes.
So let me go over to Dr. Ajit Partha. Ajit, you heard that Aniruddha knew Vivekananda, right? And more
Yes.
importantly, Aniruddha knew Vivekananda for the quotable quotes that inspired him. What about you, Ajit? How did you come across Vivekananda, and what did you do?
Sir, since young age, like maybe around 3 to 5 years itself, my grandfather used to visit Ramakrishna Mutt nearby.
Okay.
And later on, when I was around in ninth standard or something, I joined this Vivekananda Balak Sangha of Ramakrishna Mutt.
Oh,
So
where?
from there,
In
there is a
Basangudi?
connection. Yeah, Baswangudi. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yes,
Hmm.
sir. So that's where I've known. I did know about him before, also like textbooks and from my grandfather and all. But I came to know more about his teachings through. I have to mention here Swami Harshanandji Maharaj and Shyam Maharaj. So they've all taught us a lot about how he has led his life. Like not just quotes, they have taught us what are the difficulties he faced for leading the life. How did he decide to become a monk himself, and how did he inspire millions when he went to US? So that was
Beautiful.
a very good phase of my life. So yeah, I remember everything about it from Ramakrishna Math itself.
Okay, Dr. Ajit Partha is a practicing psychiatrist for all those who want to get in touch with him. So this
Yeah.
is very interesting because on one side you're a professional psychiatrist, the other side you are very grounded in your Indic culture, and very interesting to know that you have come across a Ramakrishna Mart and you had people visit, you visited, you participated in as a youngster, and you benefited a lot. Maybe that's a very interesting formula for a lot of youngsters to adopt, right? If you have
Yes,
a
sir,
visit,
definitely.
if you have a Ramakrishna Mat or a Ramakrishna Samiti nearby in your neighborhood, or maybe a Ramakrishna Vivekananda study circle in your college, or maybe just off late, we live in the digital world. All that you need to do is type Vivekananda or Ramakrishna in the YouTube world, and then pop comes millions of such conversations, perhaps, which could be very, very useful. Just pull it in, spend the time, get enlightened. Is that a good
Definitely.
formula that you'd say? Okay, so let's
That's
ask
a very
Shashank
good.
Shastri. What is his
Yes.
secret in these kinds of matters? How did you know Vivekananda, or what did you do? Or
Yeah.
have you ever
So
been to a Ramakrishna Math?
like Dr. Ajit, even I was involved in Ramakrishna Matha. So I used to go
Ah,
for this Sanskrit recitation, competitions and learnings, which were hosted in Ramakrishna Matha in Mumbai in Khar. So
very
that was
nice.
my first experience. That was my first introduction to Swamiji's teachings and his beliefs. And what struck me the most, all his quotes were. I maybe I was too young to understand the depth of his teachings at that point. But say it is something to do with how we are raised, even in in Hindu families. So our parents are very preoccupied with work, and everyone around us
Right.
is more preoccupied with the practicalities of life rather than expressing something about our dharma and the way our Indic culture teaches us things. And in this, you come across a gentleman who who wore this thing, the traditional Indian attire, and he goes to the United States and he completely mesmerizes them with his words. It is just it's a very awe-inspiring and a very it's a very magnanimous picture to
Wonderful.
imagine somebody taking this much pride and portraying it to the entire world that yes, we are the birthplace of civilization as such,
Oh,
and it
okay.
just instills that respect for the
Beautiful.
dharma.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Shashank, I appreciate. Now we have two people who have been kind of touched upon by the Ramakrishna Mats around. One in Bengaluru, in Khar, in Mumbai. So let's hear Dr. Bharat's story. Dr. Bharat, when did you hear
Yes.
Vivekananda, the word Vivekananda?
So I read Swami Vivekananda's comic book, probably Amar Chitra Katha, when I was a child,
Hmm.
and I knew the general story of Swami Vivekananda.
Okay.
However,
Okay.
he didn't touch my heart till very recently. So when I
Okay.
started out in MBBS, or
Okay.
with what intent did I start out this journey of becoming a doctor, I
Okay.
thought I knew a lot of things. And then
Okay.
I thought I can learn a lot of medicine and just help everyone just
Okay.
by being me, a doctor.
Okay.
So that was me. I started out as if I knew everything. And
Okay.
somewhere towards the end of my MBBS, with the help of my Gurudev, I realized that I don't know everything. I know only some
Okay.
things. But by the
Okay.
end of MBBS, I
Hmm.
realized I don't know anything.
Okay. That's very
Yes.
interesting. So
So,
there you are. So there is the skeptic around who wanted to explore the world, understand the reality of it, get to first fathom to what extent he really knows, has the wisdom and the humility to accept the limitations, and then to expand the horizons. And that's a very interesting approach to understand who Vivekananda is and what not. And I think you kind of stepped into the Ramakrishna Math Vivekananda uh, ashrama or whatever just about a few days back or a few weeks back or something like that, Dr.
yes,
Bharat?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
wonderful. All right, doesn't matter. The point is very simple. Somewhere along the line, there is this role model. There's something very inspiring that the role model has done, especially Indic role model. Very inspiring work. And what's critical is the fact that you all have been able to uh, kind of come across the role model and benefit in it. And that is something which is very important for a lot of youngsters who are aspiring to become doctors as well, right? So let me go around again and ask you another question. Okay, role model. You have been together in your school, very nice. You have been together in the college, perhaps, or at least you have friends. Amongst your peers, who do you think was being sought after as a role model, and do you think that would have really helped you pull yourselves up in life, or do you think somebody like Vivekananda would really help? You understand my question? Your peers, their notions of role model, your understanding of role model now, this instant today, and the fact that when you look back, do you think a role model like Vivekananda would have really helped you be much more successful in your aspirations, much more successful in pulling yourselves up, right? In facing the realities of the world. What do you say? Let's go around again. This time I'll start with Shashank, go to Ajit, then Aniruddha, and come back to Bharat. Shashank, what do you have to say?
Okay, so like when we started our journey as doctors, so firstly, everyone kept saying that this is a noble profession, this is a noble profession, and we were kind of very excited about that noble profession and everything. And somewhere down the line, we realized, okay, it's not that noble. There's a lot of things that go around up and down. So, as we grew into this business, we were, maybe because of our surroundings, we were guided more into the fact that, treat medicine as just another profession and just be bothered about earning money and fending for your family and xyz. So our role models started developing in those directions.
Okay.
Especially we have seen this in our peers. I think Dr. Bharat and Dr. Anirudh will also agree with me on this, where how many times we have heard we measure a doctor's success by how many clinics he has opened or how many cars he drives, and those kind of things, and seldom touched upon things are, okay, has he helped people, is he doing an honest practice, and how many minutes did he take to actually convince and talk to a patient. That those things are very less discussed upon. So
Okay.
luckily for us, since something about this whole notion that the deep monetization of medicine, something about this felt off, and
Commercialization
luckily
or
we had
monetization? Okay. Right.
monetization. It's the the way they just making it a money making factory, that kind of thing.
Right.
See, money is
Right.
important, we can't deny it, but it's the intent, the bhava that matters. So that is what
Right.
differentiates it from service and seva. If we can use a little bit of those
Right.
kind of terminologies.
Right.
So luckily, Dr. Bharat was there. We've had the good fortune of having like-minded people, and we could
Okay.
point out that, okay, this something feels off.
Right.
And so this is our notion as of this point, that we have to be more service oriented or more seva oriented, to be more correct.
Beautiful.
So, and that's where Swamiji's teachings would have really helped us had we been
Right.
exposed at a little earlier stages in our lives.
Right. So what you're saying is that when you look back, you're kind of saying that there is this opportunity to uh, possibly get a little more inspired. You could have got a little more inspired. You could have done a little better, and you could have done something great, right? Great in the sense that you could have achieved more in your aspirations, and that is something that possibly you are missed out. But still, nothing is lost. Better late than
We're still
never.
young, sir.
Yeah, I
It's
know, I know, I
after
know,
all
I
youth
know, I
day. We
know.
are all still very
Yeah,
young.
you have 4 years, right? There are a lot of people, youngsters, they count their what do you call it, days by the seconds. Like I lost 10 seconds, 100 seconds, a million seconds, whatever it is. Okay, of course,
We
we
have
gray
so
hair
much time
guys,
is there.
we have
So
had a long time, so we can talk like what you just now said. You have a huge future ahead of you, and
we
that's
have a
very
huge
important,
future. Yes.
right? And it's very important for each one of you to be successful in your aspirations, endeavors, and the impact that you want to make in your society, not just for your own betterment, but for the betterment of humanity at large. And that's a very interesting message that I always gather from Swami Vivekananda. So coming to
Yes.
Ajit, so what do you say, Ajit?
Yeah. Sir, see, the one thing is role model is someone who has this ability to inspire, as Dr. Shashank already mentioned. So Shashank was inspired by Swami Vivekananda. Role model should also have a clear set of some values which he has to follow himself first, and then he has to motivate the people to follow them. And
Right.
he should have something called as this commitment towards the community. Like, he can't be a self-focused person, right? So he has to focus on the community also. And he should be a very selfless person. He should accept everyone who comes to him. So he should not just deny anyone's idea as such. And he should make sure that he takes everyone's idea and make sure he betters it. And not just that, there will be obstacles in all these things. So he should also have the ability to overcome all these obstacles also. I think
Right.
Swamiji has all of these qualities. If I'm not wrong, I think all of us will agree. So
Yes.
he has been a definite role model for us since school days, maybe, and most of our friends also in my school. I can mention a few names, but all of us, we used to view him as someone we used to look at him up, and we used to be inspired while reading his, not just his quotes. We have read his life stories. We have read his books, like how probably some of the people know that he was also projected negatively at times, but how he stood up against all those things. So that is quite inspiring for all of us. So, and definitely
Wonderful.
he has
Wonderful.
inspired a lot of us. Yes, sir.
Very good. Aniruddha, what do you have to say? Vivekananda role model, your peer role models, your peers role model, and how you are not influenced by those, but by, say, somebody like Vivekananda.
Yes. So I'd like to say that as most of us will look up to our seniors in college, our professors who are better than us in few things, but because they have more experience, and we can get those experience by working like them, and they'll be the natural role models for every young person. But I would say that Swamiji has been can be the role model for every single profession and every single human being because he transcends uh, the professional qualities, and and it's better to have a role model like that because since we live our life as a holistic organism, it'll help in going through ups and downs in life, academically or otherwise.
Okay.
And
So,
his
so
aspect on health
right.
of keeping healthy physical health and mental health will
Okay.
inspire all and
Okay.
give a better chance of success. And if
Okay.
what I could say is most people miss out is the holistic approach in during college and how youth only focus on academics as the main
Right. Right. Right.
aspect
So
in their
that's a very
learning.
interesting point that you bring out. A role model is a person, or a role model is a human being who is multifaceted, who approaches life and its problems in such ways by which you can be getting inspired to take up their ways of looking at life, and then to be able
Yes,
to make things happen, right?
yes,
Which is very good. And what you're saying is that uh, uh, studying Vivekananda, especially if youngsters take the initiative to study Vivekananda, they can expand their horizons and know that life is not about just studies alone. It's also
yes,
about building good relationships, understanding the world around in much better ways, and more specifically, having a more balanced, holistic lifestyle, though you are just a kid and you have your aspirations. And of course, also have a more balanced aspiration in terms of what it means to uh, take up the roller coaster uh, bumps of, sometimes successes, sometimes failures. Kids are so idealistic that they can't face the simple failure in life. uh, in a
true.
school, they may have thought that the teacher really loves them a lot. A kid might think that he or she is being loved by the teacher a lot, and one day the teacher scolds the kid. That's it. The whole world crashes apart for that kid, perhaps, right? So the kind of role model that you need to have is to be able to know how to handle that in a more level-headed way. And I think what you're saying is the ability for the youngsters to relate with the role models, an important aspect of
Yes.
learning about the role model, and that's what's critical. So coming to Bharat, Role models. We have discussed a lot with role models. Now I'm giving you what all these people are not covered. It's all for you to
Yes.
share your insights, your
So,
wisdom, if I may kind of say so, on who role models could be for youngsters.
so we always look at people who we look up to as role models.
Okay,
But here, I have to say my childhood was a little different. Being a
okay,
doctor, I think my childhood was having a lot of models where I look at them and learn what not to do.
okay.
So, so this is for the future medical students also. We tend to
Right.
become these type of people who like look at all negatives and then learn that we should not do it.
Okay,
So we should also remind ourselves to look at the mirror
right.
and use the same instinct on ourselves. What
Okay,
not to
that's
do
very
that we are
interesting.
currently doing. And
Okay,
Swami Vivekananda,
uh-huh.
he comes in this role. Swami Vivekananda plays a very good role.
Hmm.
As in, he shows us what to do in a world where many people are doing what they shouldn't do.
Okay,
Yes,
that's very
and
interesting. So what you're kind of
so
nicely telling in so many words is, of course, as youngsters, people could be prejudice biased. They could be
yes,
having what is called as stereotypes. But then
yes,
it's more important for youngsters to really understand the world around in a proper way, trying to kind of check out whether there are things which are appropriate or inappropriate, because they must have learned something about what is appropriate and what is inappropriate to be able
yes,
to form their convictions in this appropriateness inappropriateness part. It's not like a black and white, bad good etc., or good and evil type, but you need to know how to make assessments and ensure that you look out for such role models by which you can benefit in a very positive way,
I
right?
would
And
like to
not
add a
use
point.
models by which you get to be trapped, swamped, or entangled in negative ways, right? So
Yes,
that's a
yes.
very interesting statement that you made there, Dr. Bharat, and I'm
I
kind
would
of
like to add a point.
visualizing it in so many words. Okay, you want to add something a little more, because we need to move
Yes,
very
yes.
fast. I really want to engage you all as fast
It's
as
a small
possible,
point.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I feel as to become others' role models and to become our own role models, we
Hmm.
should ask practical questions first and judge later. This is what Swami
Right.
teaches us. Whereas what people do now is judge first and ask questions later.
Okay, that's another very interesting tip that is there. Look at the
Yeah,
behavior.
there's one more thing I'd like to add to this statement.
Uh-huh.
So
Very good.
as we know, Swamiji was a genius. Like
Mhm.
he excelled at almost everything he did.
Okay.
Almost is a modest way of saying it. He excelled at everything he did. But
Okay.
he, in spite of having such a once in a lifetime kind of intellect, he never let that intellect come in his way. It never impeded his learning. Right now, we see so many people who take so much pride in the fact that they are so intelligent that they refuse to learn simple things.
Okay. So that's a very
So this is
interesting
also
point there. So Vivekananda used to say there's something called the 3H: head, heart, and hand, right? So you need
yes.
to have the right kind of motivations to be able to act upon. And that is what your actions are supposed to be, the behavior that comes out. The action part is guided by the hand. What do you make out of it? Hand. How should it come? It should come from your heart, because you need to have the right kind of emotions to be able to make it manifest, right? And then, of course, the head is supposed to guide. And of course, if you closely observe, the name Vivekananda is all about Viveka, and that Viveka comes from the head. It's a Viveka that should enable the heart to make the hand work for the betterment of the society around and the betterment of oneself in the process. It's not a question of privilege, it's a question of opportunity to serve. And that's what Vivekananda is all about, I suppose. And that's exactly what you're trying to say. The people today are so intellectually, what do you call, confounding. They kind of obfuscate, and they kind of want to strut around with the uh, big things in their head, that everybody else thinks, wow, this guy is a great guy or something like that. And if you actually closely observe, especially at the behavioral level, then you'll find a very
Yes.
petty specimen which you could have seen round in the street corners as well, right? Anyway, it doesn't
Yes.
matter. The name is their name. Like we have a prefix called dr before it, and a suffix which will be several alphabets later on, perhaps, which you guys will also accumulate as a part of your professional growth. It doesn't matter. The name is a name. The head, heart, and hand, if it's all consistent, I think that's what Vivekananda was, and that's how you bring the Vivekananda out of you. So, on that note, let me go to the next question, which I'd like to ask Dr. Bharat. All right. Very interesting statement that Shashank had put forth. Bharat, so you all have been through the grind of doing your medical education and you've got a degree right now. Okay. Now there is ups, downs, stresses, and strains, and there is this need for a more balanced way of studying. There's a need for a more balanced way of achieving high level of excellence. What do you think you could have done in the past 5 years, or 8 years, or 7 years, 6 years, in order to be able to do that high level of excellence, a more balanced, holistic way, given a role model like Vivekananda? Just 2, 3 sound bites, 2, 3 points. Are you able to
Who
hear me,
should?
Bharat?
Oh, is it me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Right.
Can you repeat the question? I just lost the.
All right. No, it's very important. It's a very
Yes.
simple, silly question. Okay. In the past 5, 6, or 7, or 8 years, right? And this question applies
Yes.
to all. So you can all can
Yes.
absorb that and then digest it in order to share your thoughts. There's nothing to think through very deep. Okay.
Yes.
So when you look
Yes.
back
I'll
in the
answer.
6, 7, or 8 years
Yes. Yes.
in your own medical education, there have
Yes.
been occasions where you have been ineffective, inefficient, maybe not done the best of yourself, etc. That's true for everybody.
Ye-
When I was
Yes.
doing my bachelor's, master's, and my PhD, I had my own rut. Okay, we all have that. Agreed. But
Yes.
just that you are young, you have Vivekananda, right? I was also lucky that I had a Vivekananda at my age, so I could do what I want to do and pull myself up. Okay. The question that I wanted to ask you is, what do you think would have been the excellences, benefits, and what you call efficiencies which you could have better pursued because of the fact that you have a role model like Vivekananda? Meaning, without
Yes.
Vivekananda,
Understood.
life in a college;
Yes.
with
Yes.
Vivekananda, life in a college, how to achieve the aspirations better. You got it?
Yes.
The difference.
So
What
I
are the
used to
two,
have.
three, 4 points, 2, 3 points that you'd like to quickly recall, which you could, which other youngsters can pick it up? Like,
Yes.
if they get into a college, a medical education, they say, "Oh, I should not be doing this because I heard Dr. Bharat say that he goofed up there and he got inspiration from Vivekananda, and maybe that's how he did course correction. I should do course correction upfront." You understand what I'm saying? Aniruddha,
Yes.
Shashank, and
So
Ajit?
yes.
Okay.
So let me tell. In my course in MBBS, I used to study very well, all the right books as they call it. At the same time, I learned playing tabla in my childhood and I started it again in MBBS final year. I was a chess player
Mhm.
and I used to do all my puja and
Okay.
dhyana.
Okay.
So what did I not do that was absolutely needed? I had very unhealthy notions. As in, there's only one chance to succeed in anything. This is what I used to believe.
Oh, okay.
So right now, the wise parenting that is going on of your generation, doctor, is that there is only one
I can
success.
understand it. Okay,
Yes,
continue.
and nothing else is it is unforgivable. So I wish this idea, which was not put by my parents but rather by the whole system.
Okay.
So I wish I didn't take up this idea or the burden of this idea.
Okay.
Now, the way I look at it, I have unlimited chances of success now. But then
Oh,
I had only one chance,
okay.
and
At least
everything
that's
else
what
is a
you thought.
failure. Yes. So we have to look at ourselves, see what is the balance that we need, what do we have unhealthy notions about.
Okay.
Yes.
So
So,
I infer two things from your response, Bharat. One is
yes.
this opportunity to introspect, and that really helped, right?
Yes.
So cultivate the attitude and ability to introspect, right? Once in a
Yes.
while, go look at the mirror of how you have been living, say, the past 2 3 months, and if there's
Yes.
something that could do better, so that it can be life can be smoother and your aspirations can be easily achieved. And that is one. Second thing that you're saying is don't think black and white. There is
Yes.
human life is all about trial and error,
We
right?
are young
And
people. We have a lot
yeah,
of time.
yes, yes, yes. So we have to learn our lessons. We should not be bogged down by the fact that there's only one opportunity, and if you mess up the opportunity, then the entire life falls apart. That should not happen. And that's a
Yes.
very interesting way. And what you're saying is, when you look at Vivekananda, he kind of says, 1,000 times you may kind of slip, 1,001th time you may succeed. That's exactly why he called a human being, right?
Yes.
Something like that. So it's important to get that spirit, and if you could have got it at the young age, then you wouldn't have really felt the blues the way you felt it when you were going through this grind of becoming a doctor. That's what you're saying in so many words. That's fine.
Yes.
Good. So let me ask Aniruddha. Aniruddha, what do you have to say? You know, past 7 years, you look at yourself back, role model there, it would have been better life. Somewhere you would have been more effective, more efficient, more balanced, more holistic. Role model not being there, you did some small screw ups perhaps and learned certain things the hard way. Do you think such a thing is valid? And if so, role model as Vivekananda, how does it make a difference for you? What do you
Yes,
think
I
when you
think
look back at your life?
yeah, I think simple things like better concentration and
Okay,
having a better goal in life
okay,
would have improved my life at that time
okay,
in the matter of studies and
okay.
maybe playing more sports and having better physical activity would have improved that as well.
The balance part of it.
Yes,
Wonderful. Great, great,
and
great. So,
yeah,
yeah, continue.
and then yeah, I think yeah that is
That's about it.
those are the
Okay.
two main things that I
So,
would tell out of my
concentration
experience.
and a mix of activities, getting the balance of it. If one could
Yes,
have had a better role
yes,
play there, it would have really helped. Because I
yes. And
know
as
many of the,
Dr. Bharat mentioned, having better introspection would always help anyone, anytime.
right, that's important. That's really good because the way our education system nowadays is, and I just came across a Beyond news report. There's this lady anchor Palki Sharma Upadhyay. She was mentioning that
Yes,
all the students in many of the Western universities nowadays are on a lot of these so-called drugs and magic pills just so they can cram during the examination time, vomit the answers up, so the examiners or the invigilators think that they're doing a great job, and then they are back into their rut in a very incompetent silo that they would have come out of, and they continue their miserable existence. Now, that's how the education system has been gamed, perhaps, and that's something which is not what we want to do. And what you're saying is that if you had this role model of having better balanced life, both in terms of physical activities and in terms of studies, in terms of concentration, that would have helped. And that's very interesting, very important. Good point for a lot of youngsters to go read Vivekananda on Karma Yoga, on uh, Dhyana Yoga, on Bhakti Yoga, so they can get their act together.
I
Concentrate.
think on any yoga is fine at this point.
Okay. All right. So, Shashank.
Some guidance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Shashank.
so sir, you actually everyone just made a very valid point about education system, and this is what I was building up to, and coincidentally, it has built up such. Our education system right now, or at least the way that our teachers want us to feel about it, is they just want us to obtain information and register it, and there is no scope or there's no encouragement to process the information to actually digest it basically.
Right.
So you receive a statement and that statement is it. You don't have to
Yes.
think for it, you don't have to apply your head. If someone says this is a fact and you then that is a fact, end of discussion. And here is where Swamiji is teaching, because Swamiji, as we heard, read his memoirs of life, he used to question everything.
He was an extremely argumentative and extremely knowledgeable person, and he used to question
On the
everything.
constructive side,
And
not the argumentative
constructively, of course,
Indian. Yeah, the
of course,
debilitating,
constructively.
obstructive, argumentative Indian. No, not that kind.
No, constructively. No, it's
Right.
see. So there is a there's a it's a debate. It's a structured debate, but it's not what we see on news channels these days. It's a proper constructive way of questioning. Okay, why do you believe this? You question everything, and once you question something, you gain a much deeper understanding to it.
You
And
need to
had
be
we done
open
this,
to gaining the
slightly,
deeper understanding as well, I suppose.
yes, and had we done this with even the little things, like concepts of medicine, of course, yes, there were so many things that we just took at face value, never really questioning what was the deeper meaning of this statement written in a very well written books. We all used to always, falter somewhere down the line, unable to write answers in exam because we know X, but the logic that goes behind that X is much more extensive. We should have focused more on that. But even in
Right.
the simple things of life,
Good,
that
good,
one
good.
concept of questioning and striving for a deeper understanding rather than just factual learning, that would be useful for
That's
all the
something.
students out there.
Yes, and that's what Vivekananda used to do, and that's what you think is a role model youngsters should
Yes,
emulate. Good. I
definitely,
just want
definitely.
to share two anecdotes or 2 points here. Okay, you need to question in order to be able to understand and assimilate. You should not question for the heck of questioning, because that's one
Yes,
of the big things that we find as a scourge in the so-called modern education system, where students ask questions just so they can needle the teacher and showcase the teacher in a little poorer light, so the rest of the crowd can giggle a bit, right? That's
so
the
that is
something that
also
many
that
youngsters.
is also the
Yeah, that's also.
that is also the consequence of the education system, because people have been the children have been made to believe that if you question the teacher in this way and you try to show that you know little more than that teacher, you are a superior person.
See, that's the tragedy of it. So the
That
humility
That's the
giving
goes,
is a
tragedy of
the
it.
judgment
pride
on the
gets in,
teacher.
and there's a
It's
false
a judgment on
confidence.
the teacher. Yes.
Yes, and then the teacher does the other one, quietly, silently writes a question paper, sets the question paper, says it, the students get to trip, and then they all get to see a small lot of eggs in the answer scripts. Okay, fine.
Yes.
The point is this: it's a game that's getting played, not so very healthy at all, and that's coming to the education system. And I just want to share a very interesting anecdote here in this context. A very interesting Swamiji who had, of course, touched me in several ways was Swami Ranganathananda ji of the Ramakrishna order. He is no more, but he is a very erudite scholar and a very well traveled person from across the world. And he used to use this anecdote in a very interesting way, describing that so called education that we all have gone through, the grind of several years or several tens of years, if I can say so, right? He says it's like the thing that goes from the notebook of the teacher through the pen of the chalk of the teacher to the board, and from the board through the pen of the student into the notebook of the student, without getting into the heads of either. Okay, so that's what happens when you have an education system of the so-called modern kind. Definitely you need to question, but questioning has to have a good basis. Intention is important, right? If you look at our Upanishads, which Swami Vivekananda used to frequently refer to, right? Kena Upanishad, it's full of questions. What is this universe? Where did it come from? Where is it going? Who am I? That's the basis for our Sanatana Dharma. In fact, Sanatana Dharma, that Swami Vivekananda was so very profusely proficient in propagating it across the world, is all about being a seeker, a humble seeker, a constructive humble seeker, not argumentative, ideologically driven, agenda peddling. I don't know what. I can add a few more such phrases, but that doesn't get one anywhere at all. Being a humble seeker, we are all seekers, and we want to understand what the reality is, right? And that is something which is part of our cultural heritage, which is why we need to know why Vivekananda is so important, even for doing a normal, simple thing like having an education, or more specifically, having a medical education. I come from an engineering background. I went through a grind of understanding engineering, from the first principles, and then to be able to do something very important, and that's called problem solving, right? So let me take this question to Dr. Ajit Partha. Okay, so role models, understanding what's important in role models, and in the past 6 7 years, what really could have made a difference for you, that little bit of reflecting back, and more specifically, problem solving. How do you combine all three?
Definitely, sir.
What do
Yes,
you
sir.
think could have helped you become a better human being in the past 6 7 years with the role? Of course, at a young child, you are exposed to Ramakrishna Math, you are exposed to all the Swamiji, so you had all the privileges, right? There's something that you could have done a little better, perhaps. What is it that is missing in the past 6 7 years?
It is true that, see, sir, like whenever everyone has a lot of problems in their life, so what usually someone does is they project their problems to someone else. It's a common defense mechanism that we call in psychiatry.
Yeah, I
People
know
can read about
psychiatrists are
projection.
speaking now.
Yeah.
Continue.
So that is the thing. So instead of projecting our own mistakes on someone else, we
It's called the
always need
blame
to look
game,
inside. Yes,
right?
yes, yeah. Like,
Yes.
for example, there is a example I think Swamiji gives it somewhere. I have read it somewhere. Like, if you are bitten by a snake, we go and get the treatment, and rather than run after the snake or scolding someone else for getting bitten by a snake. And
Okay.
Swamiji also tells that we should be strong as externally and mentally too. Because see, I think all the doctors here, they know that there are a lot of external germs, and it's the immunity that's inside that's protecting us. So
Okay.
I would suggest that we become strong not only from external but also from the inside. Like mentally, we should be really strong. That's an
Okay.
ongoing process, so it will keep on happening. It will keep on improving with our own experiences. But never ever try to project your own failures on someone else, because that is a that has a more negative effect rather than. It's better to look inside and solve our own problems rather than scolding or blaming someone else for it. And definitely, yeah, education system, as Shashank told, it has a lot of problems, and definitely it is not in such a good state maybe these days. But we should strive, and we should. I feel it is. We should strive and improve it, at least for the future generations, like who the listeners or their children or our children. So we'll strive towards that goal. That is what is my opinion about this. Yes, sir.
Yes, very interesting. In fact, what I want to do is, we have kind of covered about 45 minutes plus of our conversation, and it's very important to know that our conversation is being watched by a few people right now, and at least some of them have some questions and statements. In fact, I'd like to encourage people who are viewing right now to ask the questions in the comments section of their YouTube and Facebook. Plus, I'd also like to kind of request those who are going to watch in future that maybe you should subscribe to this channel, the Vivekananda Janotana Trust channel on the YouTube or on the Facebook, and then to click on the notification, just so you will be intimated of these kinds of programs. This program was put together in the Jiffy, and we are so happy that we could share these kinds of thoughts together. So let me bring up one question being put together by a revered person who has been watching us talk what we have spoken. And let me bring up that question. Okay, we have with us here Swami Satyapriyananda ji, who has a very important statement, and I would like to ask you all to share your thoughts on the statement. Okay, he says, medicos use doctors to spend money, medical colleges, medical hospitals, and other places. It's a business. Dr. B.M. Hegde speaks against medical treatment of that kind. He says, mind alone matters. There is an evil with every pill. These are the statements that Dr. B.M. Hegde has made. As youngsters who are getting into the profession, to do it in the right spirit of seva, and the reality that you're going to face in the hospitals and in the institutions that you may be associated with, how do you handle this trade-off? What is your reaction to what Swamiji has mentioned here? So let me start with Dr. Bharat.
Yes,
You need to answer it quickly. There's
yes,
an evil in every pill, and
yes.
there's the spirit of
Sure.
seva that Vivekananda wants. What's your trade-off? How are you going to handle that world?
So what Swami said is very true. Very true. It is happening everywhere. But we should question ourselves, to what proportion is it happening? How many doctors actually do that? And how many doctors do the opposite of that, which is them doing something noble? So Swami Vivekananda says, faith alone doesn't help anything. Faith alone is not enough. You have to have something more than faith. So what patients have nowadays is blind faith that the illness will reduce, or blind faith that the doctor will do the right thing. No, there has to be some level of questioning, and they have to know a little more about their own disorder. It is their body and it is their mind that is suffering. The doctor doesn't suffer, or conventional doctor alone, who is not a yogi, does not suffer the same way that the patient does for someone else's illness.
Okay. All right.
So,
Dr. Aniruddha.
Yes.
With every pill, there is
Yeah,
evil.
the modern, yes, yes. As Swami told that modern medicine and big pharma has spoiled our health healthcare system, and it's also true the other way that it has saved many lives. And we know how it is going during the pandemic with all new drugs, vaccine, and new things that are being found out every day. What I would like to say is it's also the intention in which a drug is created that it has some value to it. If it's done for money, it only brings money. If it's done for health, it brings health.
Those are
And
all
one more thing is, yes,
goody things. That's fine. But
yes,
how do you as an individual apply to that? Every pill, there's evil. So you'll use Vivekananda as the, what do you call, the counter pill to be able to walk that fine line between this two extremes of what is called as one side commercialization of medical service, and the other side that you need to also survive and be able to offer services which are meaningful, right?
yes, yes. So yeah, services can be offered with good intention and bad intention. I mean, if it's done just for selfish things, nothing is going to happen to the patient or the doctor. And if it's done with good intentions, it will help both. If every advice a person gives will affect the person who gives the advice as well.
Okay, I agree to agree
So
and agree to disagree with you on that. If it's done with bad intentions, definitely the existence of the patient itself is a big question mark. Maybe on that note, I
yes,
should go to Shashank Shastri and ask
yeah, have
Shashank,
yeah,
what do you have to say? Dr.
Yeah,
B.M.
so
Hegde.
yes, I partly agree with Dr. Anirudh there that like if you've heard of Jonas Salk, he was the person who developed the polio vaccine, and we
Right,
know that he refused to patent it
very nice.
because that was his goodwill gesture to the world. And on the other hand, we have 8 or 9 brands of corona vaccines. Everyone just fighting like, no, we did it first, we did it first, and the just the sheer difference in the effectiveness in both. This
And
is not
one
a scientific
particular
point. I
global
mean, the
pharma,
science is,
yeah, and one particular global pharma posted results of profit of $37 billion is what I hear about the
yeah.
vaccine that they are
So
then
as
selling around.
Anirudh said,
Okay.
as Anirudh said, like as human beings in general, our intellect has reached a state that we can execute our will to perfection. So if you intend to do something in a good way, it is going to happen. It is going to happen in a good way. And the second, so and vice versa, So and the other thing, there's an evil in every pill. So I disagree with Swamiji very respectfully in that matter because see
It's
it
not
again it
Swamiji
all
who
boils
says that.
down.
It is B.M. Hegde who says that, and Swamiji is quoting it here. Okay.
I
So,
disagree with Dr. B.M. Hegde as well. So
all right.
there was a recent study that was done in the US, especially morphine. It's a very well-known addictive drug. Morphine is also used as a painkiller. So it
Right.
was seen that when patients just post-operation or post-surgery they were given morphine, they almost never got addicted to that drug, and the ill effects that are so associated with the mental side effects of morphine, that was the extreme addiction, the craving, and all those other aspects were not seen when the patient was in that kind of pain and given morphine at that point. So there's an evil in every medicine. You take medicines only if you're sick. So if you take medicines as a healthy person, as big pharma tries to push you, you take this supplement, you take that supplement, there are
Right.
going to be side effects.
Okay.
Ayurveda, homeopathy, anyway. But if you take those medicines when you're sick, when your body has a genuine requirement for it, it is
It's
going to
not
bring
going
you
to.
benefit.
Wonderful.
It is not going to cause that harm.
So,
It's
so,
timing
so,
and it's
yeah, exactly.
intention.
No. Let me stop you there, Shashank, and I want to tell you this, okay? Quickly. The doctor who advises the patient about what the patient truly needs, if that doctor has the vivekam and gives the right kind of medications, then that medication is not evil. But then, if the doctor prescribes all kinds of tests just because the equipment has been bought with some 5-10 crores, and the hospital has to recoup that investment, now that doctor is not really working in the he's working in the gray zone of, I don't know what kind of ethics that could be called as, but then it's still a gray zone. It's commercially
We
okay.
can
You can debate it,
instead of
but
just
then
pointing
such.
them as ethical and non-ethical, we can give them gunas. We can either say they're working towards sattva or rajas or tamas.
That's okay. But what I'm saying is that's the practical world in which we live in, and there are challenges
Yes.
there. And as youngsters, right, as young doctors, these are the kinds of things that you should be aware of. That there's a need for a patient, and the patient needs the drug. Morphine cannot be addictive. But if morphine is given to somebody who doesn't need it, it can turn that so called patient into an addict, which can create havoc for that person's life. And that is
And the
something which
society.
is there as part of the human beings, doctors, uh, uh, what do you call options that the doctors have. Okay, maybe I should ask Dr. Ajit. Ajit, we have been playing around with words here. What's your take on this? With every pull, there's evil, and
Sir,
doctors
with
have to walk
all
the fine
respects
balance
to
between commercialization and the spirit of seva.
sir, with all respects to Swamiji and Dr. B.M. Hegde, sir, commercialization has already been started when they included doctors under the Consumer Protection Act, and since then it has become a business. I won't deny that. So everyone has been doing it for money. There are a very few who has
Actually, it is the
been
other
doing.
way around. Doctors were very commercial, therefore, they have been brought under the purview of the Consumers Protection Act.
Okay, we'll have a different argument on that. So,
Okay, there
okay,
I know you are
yeah.
on the other side. I am on this side. I am a patient. I'm a receiving end
So,
of the
if I may
argument.
add,
But
it is
I
using
know
a
how you are
wrong to
connected
correct a
with this.
wrong.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Anyway, the point which I want to share, that's a very interesting, important thing that Swami Satyapriyananda ji brought. And right now we do not have any other questions. But then I also would like to share another possible statement. Yeah. Um, so again, Swami Satyapriyananda ji asked a very interesting aspirational question here, and I'm bringing it up. Ancient India demonstrated that great achievements could be made even with less facilities, right? Can your generation achieve greater heights? A very interesting question that Swamiji has posed to all of you. You
So, should
understand
I
the challenge? Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yes. Can our
You are
generation achieve greater
what's
heights?
happening is the contemporary generation is a spoiled generation. We have so many things at our beck and call, and yet nothing much seems to be very impactfully happening. And yet, when you look back, say 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 years back, when Sushruta went about his noble profession of performing surgeries in order to relieve the pain in the patients who came to him, the kind of implements, tools, and the situation that he operated on, they're maybe 1 millionth of what we all have access to today, right? And yet, the impact that he has made on is that there's a beautiful commemorative statue and an inscription of his, I think, in some university in Australia or in UK. I don't know, one of the two places. All right. So, what Swamiji is saying is, can your generation achieve greater heights? That's the question. What do you say?
Yes. So, I feel
Wonderful.
ancient India, there were great people who had
Mhm.
less facilities. They attained great heights.
Okay.
There were also great people with great facilities who attained great heights.
Okay.
The same can happen now. Great
Okay.
people can achieve great heights everywhere. But if our country and our society gives great people low facilities, and more than low facilities, it's more degradation and less facilities, we
Okay.
won't achieve great
I
heights.
get the message.
So we
Need.
Yes.
want great facilities. We are all great people and we will achieve great heights.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yes.
So you're kind of
So
qualified for
I'd
all
like
these
to add.
questions.
I'd like to add
Yes.
to
And
this
we
answer.
will do with low
So
facilities also.
Okay. Fine. All right.
So I'd like to
Additional
add to this
qualifier.
answer. So I absolutely enjoyed the fact that you mentioned Sri Sushruta and
Right.
his surgical techniques. So
Right.
the kind of surgeries we have right now at this point of time are far more precise because that many years of research has gone in and we have been able to develop the tools for more precision surgery. Things that had he been alive at this time, he would have thoroughly enjoyed as well.
Right.
So we have been able to look into an atom. We have been able to look into cells. The point is
Hmm.
we don't know what we are looking for. So we
Good.
have all the
There you
technology
are.
at our disposal.
So here's the point. The point is very simple. We, given these kinds of facilities and the kind of knowledge at our disposal, not really within our brains, but outside our brains, the kind of things that one can possibly accomplish is humongous. Just that we need
Yes.
to have the inspiration, the vision, the drive, the
The,
ability to apply ourselves to make the difference. Like, for example, today India is a very, very complex society, right? For example, today, right now, we are in the midst of a huge pandemic. That's the Wuhan virus, if I may kind of put it right. And the origins of the Wuhan virus is a huge problem by itself. Every aspect of these kinds of problems always comes back to the character of the human beings involved, right? And there's a lot of great important investments that need to be done to be able to get the character of the human beings to be a lot more robust. Yes, to err is human, but then to learn and to grow, to be successfully able to make a difference is divine. But then what I want to tell you, Dr. Shashank, is this. At that time, Sushruta was a sage who applied himself to transform himself to be
yes.
able to be observant of phenomena of what is called as medical recuperation, right? Of medical, whatever, I don't know how to describe that, but he did it. And he put his ingenuity into action. And then he brought in a lot of great relief for the people around. And that has been captured in so many ways. So today we can relate to that. But today we have so much more at our disposal. As youngsters, do you think we can apply ourselves to taking up some real big challenges? Like, for example, Omicron is kind of hitting India and it's going to hit India hard, right? It's not just about medicine, it's also about statistics, it's about human behavior, it's about this thing called the interdisciplinary field of pathological spread and
Yeah.
tackling it. It's about community medicine of a very different kind, especially in the modern context. It's about human beings who are,
Social medicine, sir. It is. Yes.
yeah,
That is the
or,
concept, sir.
yeah, exactly. And there's so much of disinformation that's going on. There's so much of what do you call campaigns by vested interests, maybe big pharma companies who would like to ensure that successes which bring in relief to human beings at absolutely no cost or whatever is not even talked about. Like I recently came across a big accusation by a particular virologist. His name was Dr. Malone, in a podcast with the gentleman by name Joe Rogan in US. He says, look, UP, Uttar Pradesh, had great successes in curbing the second wave of corona because they had a standard operating procedure that also included this usage of a tablet called ivermectin, right? Now, the moment you say ivermectin, you can get banned in YouTube. Okay, because there are certain prejudices, biases that's getting built, and there are artificial intelligence algorithms which can take you on, and we do not know. The question is, UP still succeeded in keeping the hit rate low, right? It's a very complex problem getting solved, and it happened in real time because we have a pandemic at hand. There are people in this age who did what Shushruta did then, perhaps. Just that they are unsung heroes, we don't know about them. Do you think you guys can kind of live up with such kinds of challenges and add value of that kind? I gave a very elaborate big picture of
Yeah.
what can be done.
So, sir, firstly, the challenges of his time and the challenges of our time are very different. It is unfair to compare us with sages and the challenges they had at that time. But the challenges we have at our time, I am very sure that our generation is more than capable of overcoming at least whatever the best
Potential
we can
exists.
do.
That's what Swamiji says. The potential
The
exists.
potential exists. There's no doubt about it.
Manifesting it is what's important, right? So
I
that's
think
very
we should
interesting.
have learned from them. We should learn from them because they would definitely have learned from us.
Okay.
Yes,
They are
exactly.
so great. They can learn from fools and also wise people.
Right, exactly. Everybody has a lesson to offer. Dr. Ajit, what do you say about all of this?
It is true that we can achieve greater heights with the technology these days we have, just that the youngsters need to put in more effort instead of focusing excessively on social media and all those things, because that's a big distraction these days. And
Right.
better parenting skills by the parents of the current generation would definitely help in the youngsters achieve better heights, because parenting skills in the last 10 years have been, I don't know how to describe it.
I
So
know
the child doesn't feel they just
your
put a phone.
entire profession benefits from it. If the
Definitely.
parenting skills have been disastrous, psychiatrists benefit a lot, I suppose, in the sense that
Definitely.
they are
So
able
we are
to
trying to educate
professionally
the,
succeed. Yeah,
yes, sir.
but
We are trying
like
to
you
educate
said,
the,
it's very important for parents to be able to make a huge difference, and that's where a role
definitely.
model like Vivekananda comes into picture and is able to make a big difference in the lives of a lot of individuals, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, before I close, we have kind of completed about an hour of our conversation, and I hope it has been inspiring. It would be inspiring for a lot of youngsters who look forward to sharing thoughts like these and knowing who Vivekananda is. And of course, let me take a possibly just about 30 seconds to tell you that Vivekananda is not just that you see a statue of his or a photo of his somewhere. It's good to have that in the spaces that you inhabit, just so you get inspired every day. But there's also nice, interesting books to read, right? A lot of interesting small video snippets to watch, conversations to watch, wherein you would be able to relate your reality. The youngsters will be able to relate their reality with possibly what Vivekananda has to say, and that would possibly make a big difference in their lives, the youngsters' life, right? So we have the complete works of Vivekananda, which is a 9-volume thing, which is available. The PDFs are available on the internet for free. You just need to download it and use it, right? Just that you don't keep watching YouTube of the wrong kind always. 99% of YouTube may have all kinds of wrong content, but there are so much of good content too on the YouTube. So pick it up, watch. Apart from Vivekananda's 9 volumes, which is looking too huge, there are lots of short videos, short lectures, short letters, short articles, which are full of them. So, as a youngster, I would like to say that there's a very interesting book called Lectures from Colombo to Almora, which Vivekananda gave when he came back from the US. And those are very, very inspiring statements that come straight out of the heart, through the head, for the hands to work on, if I may kind of put it that way. And it's inspired an entire generation of youngsters to dedicate themselves to better achieve their aspirations. Okay, that's very important. Okay, that's critical. And then of course we also have a lot of the people who have been inspired deeply, like the Swamijis of the Ramakrishna order, the Swamijis of so many orders who acknowledge the role of Vivekananda in their lives, right? Okay, especially within the Indic framework. That's very interesting, and that's something important for all of us to undertake. And then, of course, on a closing note, if I may kind of say so, We need to have a short and sweet conversation. We cannot have it on and on. Maybe again we will meet, again we will have some specific points to discuss. But today's discussion was on Vivekananda, medical education, and the spirit of Seva. And we have these four youngsters, Dr. Bharat Pulavarti, Dr. Aniruddha Sharma, Dr. Shashank Shastri, and Dr. Ajit Partha. Closing words from all four of you. What does Vivekananda mean for you? Your statement, please. Let's start with Bharat.
Yes. So Swami Vivekananda is, as you said, he is one of my role models at this point of time. He means, what he means is, or what I learned from him is that we have to be practical. We should not be judgmental. And we should have an unlimited capacity of learning and applying, because Swami used to apply what he learned completely. And that is lacking in our current generation because of the pandemic and a lot of other factors. We don't apply what we learned. So let us give chance, let us give time to apply and chances to apply what we have learned. Yes.
What's the lesson that you have learned from Swami Vivekananda, Dr. Aniruddha?
So the main lesson that we can learn is how to change one's course in life from being a football champion to being an atheist to becoming one of the enlightened persons in our history. He has shown that one person can.
Yeah, continue.
One person can have and achieve multiple things in life.
All right, great. So how about
And
you,
he
Dr.
has
Shashank?
also.
Yeah, I think that's good. So what you're saying is people go through phases of life, being an atheist, being a football player, being an extrovert, then an introvert, then somewhere along the line you come back to your home base, which is your inner self. And that's what Vivekananda was all about. So Shashank is gone off camera. Maybe he'll come back. Meanwhile, can Dr. Ajit? Yeah, there he is. Shashank. Last one big lesson that you learned with Vivekananda. All right. You're not able to hear Dr. Shashank. You'll have to unmute yourself. Okay. Maybe Ajit, one big lesson that you learned.
Yeah, sir, I'm back. Okay. There was some audio issue again. I don't know what is happening with my phone right now.
Doesn't matter.
Can you all hear me? I hope you can hear me.
We can't see you.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, I think now it's fine.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Quick.
Yeah.
What
So,
big lesson that you learned from Vivekananda?
Arise, awake, and stop not till your goal is a reality.
Okay. Wonderful. Uttishtatah jagratah prapya pranibodata. What is said in the Upanishads? So Vivekananda roared out like a lion, and that's what you mentioned. Very
Yes.
good. And how about you, Dr. Ajit?
We learned that, personally, I learned that regarding more of spirituality, I'm more interested toward that too, because it need not be separate from the daily living. Like, it should not be detached from the other realms of whatever we are doing. We can just integrate the same spirituality in our own works, and that will definitely help us succeed a lot in life. That will definitely have a very good effect in our lives. So that is
Wonderful.
my learning.
Beautiful. So what you're saying is that do not compartmentalize your
Exactly.
self-development with the activities outside. It is part of your self-development, how you perform your activities outside. And that's exactly what Dharma is all about. Dharma is never compartmentalized, unlike the way the West has taught us to look at ourselves. And of course, let me kind of close it off with a couple of statements saying that what I learned from Vivekananda was, first, be a patriot. You should be a civilizational patriot, not just a geographical patriot, right? India, that is Bharat, I'm a patriot of that. And more importantly, Dharma, Swadharma, I'm a patriot of that. Civilizational patriotism. That is something which we all have to really dig in, enlighten ourselves and enrich ourselves, and do it for the sake of humanity, for the benefit of humanity, for the being a blessing to the humanity, right? That's very important. That's the universal message of Swami Vivekananda that I learned, and that's very important for all of us to take head on. And the second thing which I learned, of course, is that like Swami Vivekananda faced the monkeys in the Varanasi when he was being chased by monkeys, he started running further faster. The monkey started chasing him faster. And that's where some sadhu on the side said, "Hey, man, turn around and face the brutes." And then he stopped on his tracks, turned around, and then looked into the eyes of the monkey straight. And then what happened? The monkeys got scared and they started moving away. That is a very important lesson in our lives too. We are going to have complex challenges come on us. We need to know how to take on those complex challenges with the stuff which is built inside us. And that's another takeaway. So on that note, I'd like to thank you all for having taken time off to share your thoughts on what does it mean to you guys who have just completed your medical degrees and you are getting into your post-graduation courses, the transition in between. So Vivekananda, medical education, and the Spirit of Seva, a very interesting conversation. Thank you all so much. On that note, I'd like to say, please subscribe to this Vivekananda Janatana Trust channel. Turn on your notifications so you'll get impromptu conversations being put together like this. Today's was just planned in a matter of, I don't know what, not even in a few hours. And it's been very nice. Thank you so much. Jai Vivekananda.
Thank you, sir, for giving us this
Thank you, sir.
opportunity on the stage.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.